Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're really diving deep into one of those books that's, well, kind of infamous, Catch-22.
Ah, yes, a book that spawned its own phrase, and for good reason.
Exactly. We've got a ton of your selections from it, so let's unpack why this book is still making waves. I'll be honest, it has a rep for being a tough read.
It's layered, that's for sure, but that's part of what makes it brilliant.
Layered and hilarious in that really dark way. So picture this, World War II, but we're focusing on the U.S. Army Air Corps.
And through the lens of satire, of course. Heller doesn't hold back.
Not one bit. Right away, we run into Yossarian, our main man. Or is he? I mean, this guy wants nothing to do with being a hero. All he wants is to get out of flying those missions.
Which is understandable, considering the circumstances.
Totally. But he goes to some pretty extreme lengths, like trying to convince the doc he's gone completely bonkers.
That whole bit where he moves the bomb line on the map,
Yeah.
classic Yossarian.
Right. And those letters he writes back home promising to explain everything the instant I get back, just to avoid actually explaining anything.
Heller uses those moments to make us really question. Is Yossarian a coward? Or is he the only one who sees how insane this all is?
It's like he's holding up this warped mirror to war itself, showing us how messed up it can be.
And that leads perfectly into his conversation with the old man in Rome.
Mm.
You know, the one where the old man says it's the people who benefit from war, who don't actually have to fight, who want it to go on forever.
Man, that really makes you think about the whole idea of winning and losing, right?
It certainly does. And then, well, then there's the concept that defines the book, Catch-22.
The king of all bureaucratic nightmares. It's enough to make your head spin.
It's a rule that seems designed to trap you no matter what you do.
Like when Yossarian tries to get grounded by saying he's crazy. Sounds reasonable given all the bombing runs they're doing, right?
You'd think so. But Doc Daneeka, he drops the bomb.
Yeah.
That's proof Yossarian isn't crazy.
Because wanting out of deadly missions means you're perfectly sane.
The logic is so twisted, it's almost beautiful. And that's Heller's genius.
Yeah.
He takes this absurd rule and makes it a metaphor for so much more.
It's like any system where people in charge use these illogical, unfair rules to keep everyone else down.
Exactly. Catch-22 becomes bigger than just a military thing. It's about power and control and how those things can be so easily abused.
And the best part is, it's not just Yossarian stuck in this crazy situation. I mean, the whole cast of characters is wild.
Oh, absolutely. Heller populates his world with these figures who are both hilarious and kind of tragic at the same time.
Totally. Like, take Milo Minderbinder. Starts out as a mess officer, right? Not exactly the first guy you'd think of to become a business tycoon.
And yet there he is, building his empire, even if it means, bombing his own squadron for a little extra profit.
It's like he's the poster boy for war profiteering, but amped up to 11. Heller really nails that blend of comedy and, genuine unease.
It makes you question everything, like where do you even draw the line when it comes to ambition in wartime? Is anything off limits?
Right. It's unsettling, but also you can't help but kind of admire the guy's hustle. Okay, maybe not admire, but it's something.
He certainly makes you think. And then you've got Major. I mean, the name itself is pure satire gold.
Oh man, poor Major. Gets thrust into command by a pure accident and just can't handle it. Hides in his office, avoids his own men.
The ultimate case of being promoted way past your competence level.
Yeah.
But it's also more than that, right? It's Heller pointing out the absurdity of blindly following orders, especially when they're coming from someone who's clearly in over their head.
Yeah. It's like what happens when the whole system is built on this foundation of, blind obedience to rank, regardless of whether the person with the rank has any clue what they're doing.
Precisely. And speaking of questionable authority figures, we can't forget about Doc Daneeka.
Oh, Doc Daneeka. The guy's cynicism is almost an art form at this point. He cares more about his career than, actually treating his patients.
It's like he's become completely numb to the suffering around him, a cog in the machine just going through the motions.
That's a good way to put it, numb. Like, he's seen so much chaos that he's just shut down emotionally.
Which, in a way, is its own kind of tragedy, don't you think? And then there's Yossarian's tent mate. Now, he's a fascinating case.
Because on the surface, Orr seems like he's, not the sharpest tool in the shed, always crashing his plane, those weird inventions of his never quite working.
Right, but then we get to those excerpts you pulled out, the ones where it's revealed that those crashes, all part of his plan. He was practicing ditching the plane so he could escape to Sweden.
And the fishing trips. Turns out he was scouting the area, making sure everything was good to go.
It completely changes how you view him. Suddenly, those seemingly foolish actions take on this whole new meaning. Heller does that so well, making you think one thing and then, bam, turns it on its head.
It's genius. And it makes you realize that things aren't always what they seem, even in this crazy, mixed-up world of Catch-22. Which, speaking of, let's talk about Heller's writing style for a bit. It's not every day you read a book that's funny, dark, and makes you question, like, the very fabric of reality, all at the same time.
Heller had a knack for that, wouldn't you say? The way he uses language, especially.
Totally. It's like he takes those bureaucratic nightmares, the circular logic, and just throws it back at you in this really sharp, satirical way. Those repeating phrases, the way he describes the chaos, it's like he's making fun of language itself.
And it works on so many levels. Because on one hand, it's hilarious, but on the other, it's highlighting just how absurd, how meaningless these systems of power can be. Like that whole scene with General Dreidel demanding to know why Yossarian isn't wearing his uniform.
Oh man, classic. I was cold, sir. It's such a simple answer, but in that context, it becomes this act of defiance.
Exactly. And it exposes the absurdity of the rules without even having to explicitly say it. Heller makes you, the reader, come to that conclusion on your own.
Which, now that I think about it, is kind of the point of the whole book, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
Heller throws all this craziness at you, but he doesn't give you easy answers. He makes you wrestle with those uncomfortable truths.
He does. And that's part of why Catch-22 is still relevant today. It's not just a war story. It's about the struggle for sanity and freedom in a world that doesn't always make sense.
It's about those moments where you're stuck in a system that feels rigged, where the rules seem designed to keep you trapped. We've all been there, right?
Oh, absolutely. Whether it's dealing with, I don't know, a frustrating bureaucracy or just feeling powerless in a situation, those feelings, those experiences, they're universal. And Heller taps into that in a way that's both timeless and, unfortunately, still incredibly relevant.
It's like he's giving us permission to acknowledge the absurdity, to laugh at it even, as a way of maybe, I don't know, coping with it.
There's definitely an element of that. Like, the world's a mess, things don't always make sense, but we can at least find some humor in the absurdity of it all.
Find the humor and maybe, just maybe, find a way to push back against it, like Yossarian does in his own way.
Exactly. Because even though Catch-22 is full of darkness, it also offers a glimmer of hope. That even in the face of overwhelming chaos, there's still room for individual defiance, for carving out your own path.
And that's a powerful message, even after all these years. So, as we wrap things up here, I'm left thinking, what if the real Catch-22, the one we all face, is this idea that there has to be some grand meaning to it all? What if the more we search for it, the more elusive it becomes?
What a thought. Maybe the real victory is in embracing the absurdity, in finding our own meaning within the chaos. Because ultimately, that's what makes life and art so compelling, isn't it? The questions it raises, the conversations it sparks.
Exactly. Well, folks, that about does it for our deep dive into Catch-22. A huge thanks to all of you for coming along for the ride. And hey, next time you find yourself caught in a bureaucratic nightmare, remember Yossarian and Doc Daneeka and Milo Minderbinder, and maybe you'll crack a smile. Until next time, happy reading.